and then you're free to come in and sit at the tables.
Welcome. I'm Secretary of State Shanna Bellows, and we are here at 45 Commerce Drive. We are here for the third House Recount. Excuse me. We're on the fourth one, aren't we? So we are here live at 45 Commerce Drive. I'm Secretary of State Shanna Bellows. This recount is being run by Deputy Secretary of State Julie Flynn. She is the most experienced state elections director in the nation. She has been doing this for over 30 years. It's really, truly incredible. So Deputy Secretary Flynn is going to give our volunteers instructions. I'm going to turn it over to her. Deputy Flynn, some of these folks are new. You're going to give everybody instructions, right?
So for the team, you're starting at 1 again for your lot.
What?
Check and make sure nobody has any pens. Other than our purple pens that we're providing.
If you have a blue or black pen, it should be returned to the party. Felicia, do we have another B?
Yeah, we're finding it.
Oh, okay.
Always positive.
I have it. Yeah. Yeah, this is really yeah. No, this is
I think we're good. Jacket stance on.
Let's go.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let's see if you were awake for the afternoon's festivities. For those of you who were here this morning, you did an awesome job. You need to give yourselves a round of applause. We're going to do that again this afternoon, aren't we?
Yeah.
All right. So this is the recount in House District 75 between Stephen Bunker and Randall Govan. And there is a 10-vote difference. 0.2% between the two candidates. So it's starting to get real. We got some practice this morning in our new method. The good news is we have 2 towns. The bad news is one of them is Farmington with a lot of ballots. No, but the other good news is there are no other House districts to be sorted. So we're going to put out Chesterville first, do the easy one first. You're going to sort your referenda separate pile from your candidate ballots, and then go through the candidate ballots second time, all 3 members of the team, to make sure there are no referendum. There are only referenda ballots in that stack, and we'll take them away. We may, because it's a smaller district, we may not have everybody tallying the candidates. So as we take things away, we'll make sure we get all the material out on the tables, and then we'll probably consolidate into a few of the teams for tallying. When you have gotten rid of the referenda ballots, you're gonna put you're tallying, you put the pile of candidate ballots in between the two counters. If you're a counter for Mr. Bunker, and that ballot is marked for Bunker, you're gonna pull that ballot and start a pile in front of you. If you're the counter for Mr. Govan, same thing. If that's a vote for Govan, you're gonna put that in front of you. If it's a write-in or a blank for that race, you're gonna give that to the recount assistant, and they're gonna keep a stack of those. When you're done sorting into the two candidate piles, you're gonna count your piles into tens and put them in what we call crosshatch. So your first 10 to go one direction, your second 10 will go the other direction. You keep doing that, and you may end up with one set that is fewer than 10. And you're gonna put a sticky note with that number on it. When you've both counted your respective piles, you're gonna switch. And again, I don't want you putting them all together. I want you keeping them in the tens and recounting the tens and restacking them to make sure. And we did find one that had 11 first time through, and now, so we want to make sure you're not just rubber stamping what the first person did, you're checking each other's work. That's why we're doing this in twos, so you have a check and balance. When you've counted them twice, we're going to start and do a tally sheet for Mr. Bunker. And what you'll do is we'll put the Govan and the blanks aside for the moment, and the Bunker tally, you will take, or my person will take off and take 10 and count 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, put a rubber band around it, write 50 on it, put it aside, and do that again till they get everything parceled into 50s and one lot that may be an odd lot, and we'll put that number on a sticky note. Then we will tally Mr. Bunker's votes without anything else on that tally sheet, and have you, both members of the team and my staff, sign the tally sheet, and we'll take that away. And then you'll do the same thing with the Govan votes. And then when you have the Govan votes recorded on the tally sheet, we will add the blanks to that tally sheet, that second tally sheet. And again, you all sign it, and we'll take those away. Make sure when we start to tally, after things are sorted and counted into tens, when you're filling out your tally sheets, raise your hands so that your attorneys can come over and just make sure that your tally is being recorded correctly as well, because we're doing 3 different tallies, right? So we want to make sure we all match, that we don't have something wrong. What we'll probably do is in an hour and a half or so, we may, depending on where we are with Farmington, we also have the Yoakoba ballots, but we have double checked, they're separated, just Franklin County, so that's all we're going to be looking through to get the votes that were counted for the military and overseas voters on election night. But we'll cycle people through like a 10-minute bio break in about an hour and a half or so. And then we hopefully we'll get finished counting in about 3 hours if we go as smoothly, and I probably shouldn't have said that out loud, but if things go as smoothly as it did this morning. But I think we've just had lunch. It's a tendency to be a little bit sleepy, but let's make sure we keep each other awake and we pay attention to what we're doing. And that way we can get through this. And again, what's my favorite saying? You don't have time to do it right. You don't have time to do it over. So let's do it right the first time this afternoon. I think we're ready to go.
Great. For folks in the live stream, could while the election officials are handing out your ballots for sorting, could I get all of the folks representing Stephen Bunker, the counters representing Stephen Bunker, raise your hands. So you can see folks at the live stream. We've got one at every table. Okay, can you lower your hand? Folks representing Randall Govan, please raise your hands. Okay, you can see one at every table. The campaigns are literally inviting and state election officials at every table. Raise your hand. If you're not already otherwise occupied. So for folks at home, we can see that you have counters from the two campaigns, from Stephen Bunker, who's the election night winner with a 10-vote margin, and Randall Govan. Thank you to the Maine Democratic Party and the Maine Republican Party for providing those counters, as well as attorneys. I'm going to invite the attorneys from the two campaigns. Before we got started, they checked those locks and seals for those boxes. Now, were the locks and seals in the boxes all set? Thumbs up. Okay, thank you. That is a really important part of the process. So we're doing a hand recount of all of these ballots from House District 75. Now that is this Farmington and Chesterville. So there are two towns in this district, Farmington and Chesterville. Now, Stephen Bunker, the Democratic nominee, got 4,626 votes. Randall Govan, the Republican nominee, excuse me, let me read that over again. 2,318 votes for Bunker, 2,308 votes for Govan. With 279 blanks, it's a total of 4,905 ballots cast. The difference between the two of them was 10 votes. It's a 10-vote margin. So truly, this hand recount will look at every single one of those ballots cast in Chesterville and Farmington. Now, sorting is going to be a big part of what we do today. We got a lot of ballots in Farmington, but we've got the teams in the back, representatives from each political party here on site at 45 Commerce Drive for this recount of House District 75, this being our fourth recount here, overseen by the Secretary of State, 4 of 12. And of course, the 12th is Congressional District 2. We have 2 state Senate recounts, 9 state House recounts, 1 Congressional 2 recount. Of all of those recounts, 10 of them were in a 1% margin. And this margin is one of the closest, a 10-vote margin. That's a 0.22% of the votes. So stay tuned. I'm going to walk around and see how the sorting's going. So they have Chesterville and they are sorting out referendum ballots from candidate ballots. And one of the election officials said, pro tip, that and the back of the referendum ballot was blank. So versus the candidate ballot where you had the ranked choice voting races on one side and the plurality races on the other. Yeah. So Chesterville ballots have been redistributed to all of the tables and they're sorting through those candidate versus referendum ballots. For this particular town, it's just one sort. which is great news.
No, they were just mailed in and sometimes, so because there were multiple ballots. We were kind of like looking for like, you know, they get the envelope and they have to recount it, so they would have gone through and the tabulator or anything like that, so they would have been very funny.
So at table F, they're already beginning to count. They're sorting out. So what happens in that initial count is that the counter who is here on behalf of Randall Govan takes the Randall Govan ballots from the central pile. The counter who's here on behalf of Stephen Bunker takes the Stephen Bunker ballots for their side. And they literally separate the ballots out before they do those counts of 10.
Reading.
Like they work or we gotta do it how they work.
There are like for like what like red.
So there shouldn't be, it should be okay. But if it's not dark. You know, one thing. But we will be going back and double checking all the records. So when I'm not, when I'm going into. You guys still doing? We're not.
Yeah.
That's not possible, it's so down. And it doesn't matter. So are those all candidates? So what we do is I've got double check. So then you just go through this, like, four to make sure that, no candidate out. The numbers are not-
Like that.
So we have 4 teams currently counting votes for Chesterville. They've got a pile of candidate ballots between the 2 counters, 1 Democrat, 1 Republican, and the Democrat takes any vote for Stephen Bunker, the Republican takes any vote for Randall Galvin. So they're creating 2 separate piles. Any blanks go in front of the election officials. So right now you've got 4 tables that are doing that sorting of the candidate ballots. We have 2 tables that are now moving into sorting Farmington referendum ballots from non-referendum ballots. And at the table closest to me, under the supervision of Deputy Secretary Flynn, they're just finishing up, let's see if you can see that there. They're just finishing up sorting out referendum ballots from candidate ballots before they move into sorting out votes for Bunker versus votes for Govan.
And where you give press tally?
Yes. Yeah.
So after your knowledge, referendum, get back here, and there's gonna be. Or the vote for Govan. If it's a vote for Govan, there is a vote for it. We're going to if there is a blank or a write-in, that's because that vote will not count or it's one of the. I mean, not even reaching someone that really wanted it and determine what they were. But so that's what I've done, and then you have to, now we're just creating the three. Only takes one minute.
So they just called over the attorneys to table F to check out voter intent. Now that is a voter who's very creative. It looks like they did both a check mark and a filled in circle, or maybe a filled in circle with a little tail, but they did it for all of the races. And for each race, they just picked one. So it was very clearly a candidate vote for Mr. Govan. So when there's any question about voter intent on a particular ballot, then the attorneys come over, and if they agree, then that vote goes into the appropriate pile per that joint agreement. So we are here at 45 Commerce Drive, open to the public for this State House recount for District 75. Now, one of the really wonderful things in Maine is that, like over 95% of the jurisdictions in the United States, we use paper ballots, the gold standard in election security. That means we can count things again. And in a close race like that, voter intent really matters. So we will be counting every single vote, making sure those totals tie out to what the towns of Chesterville and Farmington reported in those races. And if anything doesn't tie out, then that's where the counters, the attorneys, they're going to be taking a look under the supervision of the Division of Elections. Now, the Division of Elections is run by Deputy Secretary of State Julie Flynn, the longest serving state elections director in the country, first hired by former Secretary of State Bill Diamond, a Democrat, went on to serve under other secretaries, including Republican Secretary Charlie Summers. So really someone who is so well regarded on both sides and such an expert. There's no one more expert in Maine law than she is. Although we do have one expert in the room who's done more recounts than anybody else in the room, and that is Kim Pettengill from the Maine Republican Party, hired by them to oversee the recount on their behalf. She's been watching recounts since 1974, and she's here to attest that Deputy Secretary Flynn runs a tight shop. And again, you can see attorneys or representatives from the campaigns going back behind the guardrail. Only people who are authorized, either the attorneys, the official representatives of the Govan and the Bunker campaign, or the counters, one from each side. So, you can see folks walking around, sharing a little laugh. as the counters work very quietly to count those ballots. Once they've separated out, you can see just at the table in front, here you can see careful separation. That gentleman in the cap and the woman in the black, they're separating out those ballots. You can see they handed a ballot to a state election official. That means that's a blank. A blank is considered an undervote. An undervote is when it's completely blank. The voter wasn't interested in that contest or couldn't decide. Or if it's an overvote, if it's clearly marked for both candidates, they liked both of them, that unfortunately counts as a blank. Or if they wrote in someone else. Yesterday, we all had a good chuckle when we saw a write-in where the voter had written in someone else, literally. But in this case, you can see there, the gentleman is taking any votes for Mr. Bunker. The woman is taking any votes for Mr. Govan. And they're moving through that pile very carefully. You can see some of those ballots are pretty crumpled. Those are probably absentee ballots if they've been folded, because every absentee ballot must be returned in an absentee ballot return envelope. In the recount earlier this morning, we saw a sealed envelope that had the words on it in red printed rejected by the clerk. Why was it rejected? It wasn't signed by the voter. Every absentee ballot must be returned in that security envelope, that absentee ballot return envelope, and it must be signed by the voter. Now, those envelopes are opened in a public proceeding called absentee ballot processing that happens in Maine up to 7 days prior to election day. But when a jurisdiction is going to process their absentee ballots, they must give notice to both major political parties, the Democrats and the Republicans, and the public. So anyone can go and watch that absentee ballot processing. They can examine those envelopes themselves. They can examine those lists of absentee voters to verify that those voters are legit. They can challenge voters if they have specific knowledge that a specific voter is not a due voter. I'm going to check out why someone has their hand raised.
So, we're gonna wait.
Have you really? My husband.
We have tally over here.
Right, so. I don't think Lane's putting them. So. Here's the meeting. They also have the timeline, and then. You know, just to try to enact it when we try to heat it up. Different. Do you want me to take more?
Yeah, I see.
Looking for us?
We want to go 5 years now. Otherwise. The funds are right.
Oh, we are.
The last stack of it. That, you know. All right, you're going to start with your swap. However, we the minions first, and then you set to the side so they don't get into them. Basically, you're making sure that it's not making sure. Yeah, exactly fine. And then you. So we're just going. All right, if I give to one, that you went through.
Oh, that's there you go.
Make a new file, so that way, if you want to keep the same style.
Yeah.
That way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
The other one. I don't want to make a mistake.
But it's about, yeah, yeah, no, you're good.
All right. Sorry. You know what I like? And we have 58 and 5, so that's 55. Need a buffer. Yeah. Oh, that's how it's, yeah. So it's, I don't know if you know how to pull that up. Yes.
So.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah.
Yep. You're not gonna. Anything that is each of additional. Right here, you're signing. Middle one. Oh, sorry, top one. Yeah.
Okay.
So- Yeah. Almost like, yeah, this is a very important tape.
Stand here.
Yeah. All right, so you're gonna be giving the staff the talent period to me, so you'll say out loud. No, that's his. I bought it for him. So he didn't take mine.
30.
So I bought it.
50.
We stop it. Makers of 50, 20, 30. This is water, and then you get. Well, I got it.
And 20.
I'm already done.
22. Seven people. So.
I have to run it like.
So, all right, so it's a lot, 50, or it's a lot, like the combined, like 50 plus that.
Standing or total.
Yeah, but both those together are each two. Thank you.
So, 50 plus
Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
It's a burden. For everybody?
Yeah, different space.
Lots of confidence.
So the write-in this was.
Because that is not.
Okay.
So I didn't see. It's not right here. Really actually. So we do.
Okay, and. I did see the audience. I guess it was like, you know, question about like the technicality of that, like, I'm not sure if like you're given like stuff like recognized, right? 0, 0.
So if you weren't sure about that, Richard. Yep.
So you agree that that would be.
That's it. Wow.
Thank you.
So we're doing 79 ballots, open the first 5 nights, if we keep forward to the ballot in the. You got me here. Yes.
So we just finished.
Yes.
This is a good time for me to sub. It's just been like. I do not. What number? So, yeah.
So this is separating from my residence. Before we are covering the ballot.
Open it, or
So what we're saying is that we are not, but that you're just separated. This out here really got actually, you just broke his finger. Yeah, primary. So, where you're. Try to make sure they're all going the right way, so we. Yes. You know, they. Some of them I don't have. Maybe one of them. Well, or it could be that I just know. One day. For like the local. Referendum doesn't matter what, direction or order, but. They wrote it. All right.
So it's fun being here in person to watch the hand recount. At this point, Chesterville, the tallies are prepared. The attorneys have brought them back to the party tables. They're taking a look to make sure that they agree with the results for Chesterville, making sure that they tie out appropriately. Behind me, you can see that there is a table that is looking at the what's called spoiled ballots. Spoiled ballots are ballots that oops, we're gonna go back here. Shannon's table, right there. Where the gentleman with the blue shirt is standing, they are looking at envelopes that have spoiled ballots. Spoiled ballots are where the voter messed up. Maybe they spilled a cup of coffee on their ballot. Maybe they started to fill out a vote for one person and changed their mind. Those ballots get marked as spoiled. And I see their attorneys at the table. I'm going to walk back and see what's going on. Yeah.
I mean, it's the referendum, but it's I don't.
Have you guys ever seen the second type of ballot? It's a right. It means the person, I think, or something else, and then they go back to it, and then they ballot. They're speaking of it. Yeah, but
Just the.
oh, okay, right. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. So we've moved from Chesterville to Farmington. Folks are checking the envelopes of spoiled ballots to make sure there are no candidate ballots in those envelopes of spoiled ballots. Lawyers are hanging around watching those envelopes be examined, just making sure that everything in the envelopes is proper as it should be. And we've got a lot of tables working on sorting out those Farmington ballots, sorting out the referendum ballots from the actual ballots, as well as starting to tabulate ballots. Stay tuned. We're here for House District 75. This is the contest between Stephen Bunker and Randall Govan. This is Senate Representative 75, very close race, just a 10 vote difference, 0.22% margin. So we're counting every ballot by hand. I'm Secretary of State Shanna Bellows here live at 45 Commerce Drive. Come on down if you want to join us.
Wow. It's okay, as long as it's. Yep, that's the thing.
I suppose like.
Yeah, so you like your
Like you.
for lawyers.
For parcel.
The referendum and it's- Yes, okay. Yeah. Love your paper.
Raise my hand for a second. Yeah.
We all heard. Hey, Lisa. So, yeah. I think he would like to be subhead. And so I need another deck front, because we're about to have this. Yeah, you can drop them off.
So should I keep my hand up so I don't?
No, he'll bring some.
So we have some results for Chesterville, do we not, right?
We
Deputy-
do. It came out identical to election night. Mr. Bunker got 266, Mr. Govan 552, 28 blanks, total of 846 ballots cast.
Kudos to the Chesterville clerk. It's always great when it ties out. And the campaign side off on Chesterville. We got a thumbs up. We got thumbs up from the campaigns that they tied up. Okay. Kudos to Chesterville. Now, of course, Chesterville is the smallest part of this district. But again, 266 votes for Stephen Bunker, 552 votes for Randall Govan coming out of Chesterville. So now we're moving on to Farmington. So every table is working on either sorting or counting Farmington. Now, at the table that you can see, back to the gentleman in the maroon shirt and the woman in the black shirt, sitting with one of our election officials also in a black shirt. I gave them a little tutorial in an express vote. They had a ballot. It was actually a ballot cast for Randall Govan. An express vote machine is an accessible ballot marking device. Now, it's not connected to the internet. It's in the polling place. You might see a sign on it. It's marked as an accessible voting machine. If someone is visually impaired and they really need to hear the ballot, they can use headphones. It has all sorts of adaptive equipment so that people with different disabilities can utilize that to mark the ballot of their choice. It has a touch screen. Actually, quite frankly, anyone can use the express vote ballot marking device. You can use that touch screen to pick your candidates, and then it produces a paper record, because in Maine, we use that gold standard in election security, which is the paper ballot. So the ballot looks a little bit different than the other ballots, but you could see clearly that that voter had selected Randall Govan. It's on the ballot. And so they placed it, the counter who is counting on behalf of Mr. Govan placed it in his pile, and they continued to do that work of separating those ballots. So we're working on Farmington. Great to have those Chesterville results tie on. Kudos to the Chesterville clerk. These local election clerks work so hard. Just so proud of you and your election workers on election night, getting those totals exactly right in that race between Bunker and Govan. All right, stay tuned. We're here. Come on down if you want to. 45 Commerce Drive. This is the recount for State House District 75.
Yeah.
So your attorneys will come.
There I am.
Have to color through the line for.
So the attorneys just came over. They were called to a table here to look at voter intent. A voter had marked very clearly outside of the lines for that oval, but it was also very clear what the voter wanted. That particular vote was a vote for bunker, and that's a-okay. You don't have to always color inside the lines, and it will still be read. Now, it's probable that the machine read it, but this is where sometimes you see differences in the totals between blanks and certain candidates, where a machine may not always be able to recognize voter intent if the voter hasn't followed those directions. So we're here. Every table at this point is tallying Farmington votes. We've moved on from Chesterville, which tied out perfectly, to Farmington.
There was nothing in
Yeah, that's what I wanted to verify.
So it's almost 9 years. Right? Now you're 10, so it's funny.
So I just did a walk around. They're doing their groups of 10. At the back of the room, some of the election officials are making sure that we've got all the right paperwork for tomorrow's recount. So we'll be ready to go for those 2 recounts tomorrow. So again, we finished Chesterville in this HD 75 recount. Now the hard work, Farmington, that's a very large municipality. And so we're doing that work to get those Farmington votes tallied. We're here live at 45 Commerce Drive with representatives from both the Democratic and the Republican Party actually doing the counting. So each campaign provides the counters to count the votes in this race, which was decided by 10 votes. You're talking a 0.22% margin. Stay tuned and we'll be back.
No, that's fine.
Don't beat yourself up. It's been a long day. Want me to draw the lines over here?
Yeah.
Against that ladder. Okay, and then you just make back, last one, on the. And that way, you just. So like, don't go that way.
I'm gonna respond to that come up too.
Make sure that. Yeah, and you're also eyeballing the old. Time to make sure that. Yeah. If you want, I can put that. Probably do over here. Yes, you want to. Yeah, want to pull it or help them
The tallies are rolling in from Farmington. The attorneys watch as the tables count their tallies. They're batching them in lots of 50, surrounded by rubber bands, and then counting them. Both sides have to agree. Both sides have to sign off on every single tally sheet for every single table. They're marked with specific lot numbers, and those totals, they go to the back of the room where Jehan and Melissa, they are totaling the tallies, keeping a running total, making sure that we have all of those Farmington votes here in House District 75 for this recount, this very narrow race between Stephen Bunker and Randall Govan.
You're like this.
Candy cane. Yeah. It's like you could video.
Oh, no.
Sorry. Communication.
Oversight. Oversight.
Put that on. All right. Oh my God. Can we both agree? Well, but I think you had all. You don't want that we're gonna start. Yeah, not. I love, I can't. So 140. Yeah. Sorry, yeah. Let me know. So what we do first is we count the data set, really just make sure that that's okay, you make sure that that's 5, and then you can. Okay. So basically. Right. I think those, that's so they don't go on so we can clear that shit. And then, just count for stats again, and then essentially just take it and you. So you're just making sure that we're. And if there is not the problem, you just let me know, we stop it and we.
Very last pass here.
Oh. No. We're down. That's okay. Thank you. Okay. And then you can stop there and then. Yep. Great. I was just thinking.
So you'll probably balance. And then we bundle it and. I know. I think my two. Right. I have. You okay with that? Oh, well, okay.
Thank you. The other side was really bad. Okay. So there's one right here and then she has an she
Yeah.
Yeah, it's age grade. Yeah, I think we are doing 1,500. That's it. Awesome, thank you. So I think we've done that. Oh, you don't know that. Your name.
You don't know. A lot of time. Don't know. You don't want to vote.
Yeah. I'm just not too. And then you have it.
Or.
Oh, you don't have like. Right,
No.
okay, so just 0, 0, 0. So now. So we're just start those. Oh, I think these are highly so we have.
Welcome back to the recount of House District 75. I'm Secretary of State Shanna Bellows. We're here at 45 Commerce Drive, where we'll be all week recounting several, in fact, 11 House and Senate races, 9 House races, 2 state Senate races. Maine has very purple districts, and of those races, 9 of them were within 1%. The race we're counting today was one of the closest. This race between Stephen Bunker and Randall Govan, coming down to just a 10-vote margin. So we verified earlier today the Chesterville margins. Those numbers came out exactly right. Behind me, folks are counting those Farmington numbers and counting the military and overseas ballots. There were 39 military and overseas ballots. Now, those could be folks serving in the military. They could be students who attend University of Maine Farmington, studying abroad. They could be people like I was once, living, working in the Peace Corps, or folks serving in international businesses or NGOs living overseas. So we have 39 military and overseas ballots, which will be counted, as well as those Farmington ballots where tables behind me are finishing up. We have a couple of idle tables because we are reaching the end of the count. Stay tuned.
New thing to get used to.
My guide. I agree. There's none of these in the slide. They're not.
For how long? Thinking about. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we can. Oh. Thinking about next, legacy championship. Yeah. Yeah. I thought that's here.
Yeah.
And then also. The other, the other. Oh, yeah. I think we can take a 5-minute recess. Friday.
All right, everybody.
So the UOCAVA votes, which are the military and overseas voters, came out the same as election night, 27 votes for Bunker, 10 for Govan, 2 blanks, total of 39 ballots cast.
Congratulations,
All right.
Deputy Secretary Flynn.
We're almost ready to have a total for Farmington.
Excellent. We are almost there. We're just minutes away from the Farmington totals, and we'll see what the outcome of this hand recount is. Stay tuned. Don't go away. We'll have a total soon. Carlos home. Will you be back later this week?
No.
Safe Carlos home.
Monday.
Oh, okay. I'll be here Monday too. I'm gonna be here all.
Let me, just give you, I'm gonna talk. Yeah.
No.
Hey folks, thanks for staying with us. As you can see, folks are starting to clear out. We are doing these final tallies of the House District 75 recount. Again, that was between Stephen Bunker, Randall Govan, difference of 10 votes on election night. So seeing how that turns out, the towns of Chesterville and Farmington. If you're interested in watching more of these, maybe you're interested if your community will be one of the ones recounted. I know earlier today I was speaking to a resident of Mount Vernon who had just sort of wondered if the tallies that come out of the tabulators are accurate. He was able to be here when we announced those totals from that full hand recount this morning. And it was exactly accurate in Mount Vernon. So now he can rest assured that in his community, the same tabulators that we use all across the state did accurately count those ballots on election night. So tomorrow, if you're interested in joining us in the morning, we have House District 52. That is between current Representative Sally Clucci and Dave Gilmet. That was a difference of 0.29%. So this one we're doing right now is 0.22%. So a little bit more of a gap, but not by much. The communities that will be recounting in the morning are Bowdoin, part of Bowdoin and Bowdenham, Richmond, and Perkins Island Township. Then in the afternoon, we have a change from our previously announced schedule because yesterday's recount went a little longer than anticipated. So in the afternoon, we'll be doing House District 81. That's the race between Joan Beal and Peter Wood. That's a difference of 0.34%, so a little bit bigger than both the one we're doing today, tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow morning. In the municipalities in that recount will be Bethel, Greenwood, Norway, Stoneham, Stowe, Sweden, Waterford, Alton Township, South Oxford, and Mason Township. So if you're in any of those communities, interested to know how the counts compare between the full hand recount we're doing now in Augusta and the counts that were announced on election night, feel free to tune in. We'll be here on our YouTube live streaming both of those. You can of course come here in person as well, but I know especially for those folks out in Oxford County, that might be a bit of a drive. That's why we want to do these live streams, make observing these election processes really accessible to anyone. So on Thursday, we have what might be the most intriguing recount that a lot of Mainers ever remember. On election night, there was an apparent tie between current Representative Lucas Lanigan and Patricia Kidder. They both have, it seems, 2,476 votes. A tie, a difference of 0%. That is part of Sanford, as well as Newfield and Shapley. We'll be doing that one in the morning. And then in the afternoon, we're doing another recount in Sanford of Amy Bell and Representative Anne Marie Mastracchio. Their difference was a little bit bigger, 1.68%, but not a huge difference. So really, if you're familiar with the recount statute in Maine law at all, you know that there's sort of a rising level of deposit that candidates have to pay over a certain amount. So if it's really tight in these legislative races, 1.5% or a closer, there's no deposit required. They just need to request a recount. With that 1.68% difference, there was a small deposit required that Amy Bell did pay. On Friday, we'll start our Senate recounts. We're starting on Friday with Senate District 8 between Leo Kinney and current Senator Mike Tipping. That was a difference of, looks like 117 votes, 0.58%. So this is a district that includes Orono and Old Town, and then a number of other municipalities further north in Penobscot County. And on Monday of next week, we'll be doing a recount in Senate District 15, which actually is the district we're standing in right here. And that is between two current representatives who are both running for state Senate, Dick Bradstreet and Regan LaRochelle. And that's a difference of 199 votes, still less than 1% difference. And that district is Augusta, Belgrade, China, Mount Vernon, Sydney, and Vassalboro. So if you're interested in watching more of these recounts, see how many of those election night totals were exactly right. Or like one of the towns this morning where turns out there were actually 3 fewer blanks than it seemed on election night. One candidate gained 1 vote, one candidate gained 2. But we had those results validated. So I see some movement behind me. I'm going to get away from the camera in case there's an announcement to make.
Recount.
So update everybody for House District 75, just in case folks are wondering what's going on. So we do have the Farmington preliminary totals. Now the campaigns have to sign off on them. In the Farmington recount, you saw blanks go down. And Randy Govan picked up 2 votes, Stephen Bunker picking up, losing 1 of those votes. Why might that happen? Because the machine is reading what it's seeing, but then voter intent sometimes makes it really clear that there's something different there. And so those blanks can get reinterpreted. And in the voter review of the votes, Randy Govan picked up 1, Stephen Bunker down 1. Now, there's one more, and this is a little bit unusual, but the Maine Republican Party has asked that they look at the spoiled ballots. Now, in the spoiled ballots, there was one that was not marked spoiled. That was a ballot for Stephen Bunker. The attorneys are going to be looking at all of those spoiled ballots and just doing a quick count of those spoiled ballots and also deciding what to do about that one ballot that was in spoiled ballots that was unmarked. So that's what's happening at the front. Deputy Secretary Flynn sitting with the attorneys to review the spoiled ballots from Farmington and Chesterville before final sign off on the totals. Now, as you can do the math, this is a 10-vote race at this point. They're very minor change that wouldn't impact the outcome, but we'll see what happens over here at this table while all eyes are on that table.
This one you can get for
Take that.
You guys got them, right? Yeah.
So.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So. Okay.
So the campaigns have reviewed the spoiled ballots again. The lawyers for each campaign working with Deputy Secretary Flynn to go through those spoiled ballots. Now, every spoiled ballot was marked with the exception of one. One unmarked spoiled ballot in Farmington was a vote for Bunker. They are going to leave that as a disputed ballot. That means it won't go into the overall totals, but it will be recorded as a disputed ballot. So right now the campaigns are signing off on the totals for Farmington. Having already signed off on those totals for the military and overseas ballots, which did not change, having signed off on the Chesterville ballots, which did not change. They're signing off on Farmington, and then they will be asked to sign on off the totals for the entire race. That one disputed ballot will not get adjudicated because it would not have impacted the outcome. So stay tuned as the campaigns take a look at those Farmington totals, make sure that they are in agreement with it. Now, you might be wondering, what is a spoiled ballot? We got this question a couple cycles ago. Somebody said, I spilled coffee all over my ballot. What do I do? The answer is you bring it back to the clerk stamps it or writes spoiled by the voter on that ballot in red pen, but keeps it for posterity's sake. The same thing might happen if you're in the voting booth on election day, you're filling out something and then you're like, wait a second, I wanted to vote yes, not no on that issue. Even if you've already filled it out, you can say, oh, hold on, I spoiled it. Bring it back to the clerk. They will mark spoiled on it. They will give you another ballot. Now you get 2 tries, right? 3 strikes, you're out. You cannot have more than 3 ballots, but you can have up to 2 spoiled ballots. Say you're a nervous voter and you're just really nervous. Say you filled it out in red pen or purple pen, and then you read the directions and you're supposed to fill out those ballots in black pen, and that's a spoiled ballot. Or maybe you were voting absentee at home, you're filling out your choices, you haven't sent it back to the clerk, and then you see an ad that totally changes your mind. As long as you've not returned that ballot to the clerk, you can spoil it. You can bring it back to the clerk, but the clerk has to keep it. They have to have a record of your ballot. That's called spoiled ballots. We saw 78 spoiled ballots in Farmington, 11 spoiled ballots in Chesterville. All of those get marked as spoiled. They get kept for that 22 months that all ballots get retained in the official retention period. Now, all these ballots, once we're done today, These boxes are going to get locked and sealed. The attorneys are going to sign off on those numeric codes that we are adding to these boxes, new numeric codes, and those ballots are going to go back to the towns for 22 months. So I think we've got some sign off. I hope we're getting sign offs on those Farmington numbers, and we'll be able to announce the totals very soon. Now, in a recount, you might notice both sides have to sign off every step of the way. That is really crucial in this process. It's being counted by both sides, and then it is being verified by both sides so that everybody is happy every step of the way. Don't go away. I'm Secretary of State Shanna Bellows, narrating the live stream. Allie, any news, any updates? No?
Did go over the schedule, for the next. upcoming
Yes,
days.
if you found this TV riveting, guess what? We'll be here tomorrow. We've got two
And Thursday, Friday, and Monday.
Yes, that too. We have lots of recounts here because Maine has really competitive districts, in part because of a very fair redistricting process and a culture of voting the person, not the party. People vote based on principle, based on the people that are running. And that's why we have these very purple races, 9 of our state house races, less than 1% difference.
Yeah.
Pretty remarkable. Jinx.
I just said it. Yeah. Tim, if you get an updated farm. Did you get an updated farm?
Save one of the boxes. For Farmington CB2. Yeah. They go in a separate envelope and we like to dispute it. Yeah. Oh my God. Pay for the fine. Oh.
You're right, yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, so we have the Farmington totals. You can see the attorneys for both sides have signed off on these. 2,024 votes for Stephen Bunker coming out of Farmington. 1,748 votes for Randy Govan coming out of Farmington. 248 blanks, 1 disputed ballot. That's 4,021 ballots coming out of Farmington.
So counters, you did a great job today. Mr. Bunker remained the winner by 7 votes, 2,317 to 2,310. Thank you very much for your service. Hopefully we'll see you all tomorrow.
So Deputy Secretary Flynn, can you read the totals?
Final total, 2,317 for Mr. Bunker, 2,310 for Mr. Govan, 278 blank votes, 1 ballot disputed, 4,906 total ballots cast.
So there, if you thought your vote doesn't matter, it certainly does. In this legislative district, separated only by 7. Thank you, Deputy Secretary Flynn. We are going to give the official results back to her. A 7-vote margin, 2,317 for Mr. Bunker to 2,310 for Mr. Govan. Congratulations to the candidates and to the hardworking counters. We're going to sign off on this live stream. Have a great afternoon. Check back tomorrow morning on the same stream, 9 a.m.